So welcome to our workshop discussion for the day. I'm going to spotlight me. And we are here to look at how do we manage the fear of reinfection. So obviously, I think most of us know that there's a whole new variant out there, which isn't so new right now, but that is affecting more and more people than we even have seen so far. Okay, so there is a very possible likelihood that this will find us at some point, and our bodies may not notice it or register it, or they might, and it might develop into an infection that becomes something that we then need to manage and deal with. So what I want us to do, just to begin with, is let's look at what is the fear. So let's just name it. And the way that I want you to do that is to use the chat box. So obviously, if you're too tired and you don't have the energy to type, I'm sure someone will type the things that you feel. But what I'd like you to do is put into the chat box, I'm worried about, and it might be, I'm worried about getting as sick as I got the first time. I'm worried about it taking 6 months to recover. I'm worried about it causing a massive relapse. Let's just name those fears, okay? Yeah, relapse and regression. So as you type them in, I'll just read them out. And I want you to see that, the fears that you have are probably very similar to the fears that lots of other people have too. I'm worried about going back to the beginning and also gaining more symptoms. Right, it's going to be even worse than last time. Let's see. Heart and lungs. Yeah, those two pretty crucial organs that do seem to be quite affected by what happens to us when COVID meets our immune system. Relapse and fear of breathing difficulty again, for sure. Regression, definitely, yeah. It taking as long to recover as it did this time round, of course. Going through it all again. So there's definitely a theme of, I'm going to go back to the beginning. It's going to take me as long. I'm worried about dying because my ongoing organ issues can't take it anymore. Of course, that would be, a very valid reason to be very fearful about crossing the path with COVID again. I'm worried about long COVID starting over now that I'm triggered from my second infection. Okay, Balak, great. We can kind of maybe hopefully look at a little bit about that in a moment. But I'm hearing that you're on a second infection and you're concerned about what might be happening. Ending up in hospital again, haven't recovered since March 2020, don't want to start again. I'm worried about relapse, losing my ability to do the things that I love. I'll have to give up my job finally. Sliding right back to the bottom of the snake before I got reinfected. I'm worried about it causing a massive relapse and taking long to recover. Yeah, okay. Very poorly, relapse, never getting out of this. Worried about everything that I've overcome now to come back. Yeah. Going back to the beginning. Fear of confusing relapse with having COVID. When you don't feel good, you're not sure if it's a relapse or if you've got COVID again, of course. Fear itself and anxiety, uncertainty, no one listening, and dying. Right. These are really, really big, genuine fears, causing worse mental health through fear of second infection. Yeah. The fear of it never leaving the body. So, okay, let's just take a pause on that for a moment. I think, when we spell it out, when we look at it, these are big, significant fears, and everyone has a right to have those fears. This, for most of you, if you're here, if you're listening to this workshop, if you're attending this workshop, it's because the first time round, or maybe even the second time round, didn't work for you. It made you ill. For most of us, it made us the most unwell we've ever been in our lives. And we don't want to go back there for anything, right? And some people are still trying to recover from that initial experience. So of course, there's going to be fear and anxiety abound. What we do know is that fear and anxiety have an impact on our nervous system, which has an impact on our immune system. Okay, I think we all know that now. I'm seeing lots of nodding heads. So what I want you to know is that this workshop from here on in will be very much focusing around how do we create the most positive and most useful mindset for ourselves to help us manage this period whilst we're waiting, and maybe even manage the period when we get that positive test result, if and when that happens. And it might not happen, okay? It might not. So it is important that from this point on, I want you to know that we're going to be seeking evidence that kind of tops up our hope and sort of belief tank, rather than tops up our fears and anxieties tank. I think we could top that tank up really, really quickly, okay? In fact, for most of us, that tank is probably already pretty nearly full anyway, okay? So what we're going to be doing in this discussion is focusing over, for some reason I've placed it on this shoulder. You can put your hope tank wherever you want to put it, okay? Mine's here right now, so you can see it. At this point, I'm going to invite anyone who has had a second infection and has managed it surprisingly well, or it's been a different experience to the first time. I want you to send Rachel Clubb a direct message, so a private message, and just give a couple of sentences if you can, just to kind of outline. And then what we'd like to do is come to those people and be inspired by them, but we're not going to do it until we've kind of navigated a little bit further into the discussion. Okay? So drop Rachel Clubb a message if you've had a second infection that you're happy to talk about. Remember, I am really looking to top up the hope tank and not the, oh my God, we're all going to die tank. Okay? Obviously, if we get to the point, you know, maybe in 3 months' time where we need to get a group of people together to talk about my second infection was really, really tough and I need some support in that, that's a separate workshop and we do that separately from here, okay? But what I want us to do is almost prime the chemicals in our brain, to prime the chemicals in our body, to get us into the space where we kind of feel slightly more empowered than we do. Because at the moment, we're waiting for this invisible thing to happen that's totally out of our control. And what I'd like you to feel by the end of this discussion today is that you have some control, okay? That there's some control over how you manage it, what you do, what steps you take, okay? So, Rachel, let me just check in with you. Are you getting some people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of really positive comments. Sal said that she had COVID in March 2020 and December 2020. So she's a bit of an expert. And then, oh, let me just admit, there we go. Alex saying second infection's just over, and it was different than the first time. And already felt different by day 5, and they've had a much better recovery.
Right, I'm going to pause you right there. So that's good. We're beginning to gather some evidence that will be useful for us to come back and tap into in a while. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to break into small groups. How many have we got? We've got 54. So I'm going to create about 11 groups. And in that little group that you're going to be in, what I want you to do is to think back to what it was that you did when you first realized you had COVID in your system. So did you down tools and go into instant rest? Did you panic? Did you focus on your mental health as well as your physical health? Did you stop work instantly? Or did you, like I did, think, oh, this must be COVID because I've been locked in the house for a week now, but I'm really busy getting my whole new business set up online because we've just been put in lockdown. So I'm going to work really, really hard under quite stressful conditions whilst supposedly homeschooling my children and navigating this whole new world. So I ignored myself, essentially. Okay, so what I'm just going to ask you to do is just to check in with the other people that you find yourself with, like, what did you actually do? Because when we come back into that little group again, which we will when we've kind of heard back from you, is we'll create this concept of a wise, loving self. So my wise, loving self would go back to Susie in that sort of March 2020 period and go, my friend, just a word of advice. If you don't stop things, it's going to take you a year to recover. And I want you to come up with what tips you would give yourself now that you might just sort of take on and do differently when you got that kind of confirmation that you had a second infection going on. Okay, so, but this first conversation is around what did you do initially? Okay, like what were those first responses? And what I'd like you to do is choose one person in your group who's going to be happy to be the spokesperson, and we'll hear from maybe 3 or 4 or 5 groups and just hear what did people do to manage, okay? Or what didn't they do so well is essentially what I'm looking for. So choose a spokesperson and then your feedback. So now if you've never been in a Zoom breakout room before, I'm going to press a button and essentially it just selects you into little tiny groups and you'll disappear off and you'll suddenly appear with kind of 3 or 4 other people. Okay, so don't panic if you're kind of thinking, oh, I really don't like this idea. Actually, it'll be nice and calm and you'll be able to just have a little chat with other people who are in exactly the same position as you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to say goodbye. I'll give you all a 1 minute kind of callback, so it will bring you back in. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes together, okay? So not very long, maybe that's just a minute each to share your thoughts. Try and not go into a massive, well, at the very beginning, blah, 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 when I was a child, blah, blah. We're just looking for those kind of condensed, give us a snapshot, okay? Otherwise we'll be here all day. I'm going to do 12. Here we go. My math is terrible. I'm just putting 12 breakout rooms there and let's see what happens, which says 4 to 5 participants per room, which is perfect. Okay, I'll see you guys in 5 minutes. It will happen now.
Not listed. With my situation, there was only 3 symptoms at the time, and if you didn't have 1 or 2 of them, they wouldn't test you. They wouldn't have tests anyways. So a lot of it was just isolation and fear. And some people did go back to work and realized they just couldn't. So that was it, really. And it was just the anxiety of it all and all the new symptoms coming through and not knowing what to do about it. Doctors not believing you and putting you on antibiotics instead of realizing it might be COVID.
Right.
So,
yeah, I totally get that. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Gabriella. Claire, your hand is raised. Hi, my love.
Hi, yeah, similar to what other people have said, really, but initially it's that kind of, some of us didn't particularly rest, just kind of carried on thinking it was mild, going back to work too quickly, obviously not listening to your body. One of the members was talking about they did rest, but actually they were checking their phone and the news all the time because it was so fresh in March 2020. So probably that, all that's the social media and that anxiety coming from just keep checking for news all the time. What should I be doing? What shouldn't I be doing? What's going on out there? So yeah, a lot of kind of anxiety coming from that and just the unknown, really. Whereas, and we said, we do think it's very different now. We're dealing with a very different situation because obviously we've got, the knowledge and things and everything's changed so much from those days of March 2020 when, some of the members were infected very early on. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire. Rachel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I would say that, to be honest, our group very much similar to what Claire's just been describing. So lots of us tried to plough on, and also a lack of understanding that perhaps we'd actually got COVID. Certainly in my case, didn't have a dry cough, so I didn't have, or a fever, so surely I couldn't have had it, and therefore ploughed on. And also I think the talk in March 2020 was very much about it being something that was risky for older people, and we didn't know about long COVID. So there's a sense of not being too worried about it, so just carrying on as well. Also, for those people that were resting, again, similar sort of thing, that they're resting but on social media because you're trying to find out what you can, and in those early months about COVID and about what might be happening to you, and that isn't necessarily the most helpful thing. And we did a bit of talking about what we would do differently next time as well.
Right, and we're going to come to that because I think that's a really a really important thing to have to start having your kind of action plan in place. Let's just take, we're going to take, oh, someone's just jumped around on the screen. Lisa Bain. Hello, love. Can you unmute? There we go.
Unmuted. Yeah, we unfortunately didn't quite get around to speaking to everybody in our group.
Yeah.
Kind of ran away with us, but I would say that generally the themes are very similar to what people have spoken about: anxiety, and pushing through. I real feel that people tried to push through, particularly after the acute infection phase, where people tried to go back to work too soon, people tried to exercise too soon, and that set them back. And that if they were there again, they would do things differently, as in slower, and rest more.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lisa. Let's just take one more of these. So I'm going to come to Tam. Tam, let's hear from you and your group.
Hi there. Really similar theme, so I won't take too long. But yeah, very much a huge amount of fear, particularly in the early stages when not a lot was known about it. Panic, that word was used a few times as well. Definite themes around sort of not resting and not listening to our bodies. I guess, you know, with the colds we normally get, you know, you can kind of rest for a bit and then move on. So even if people did rest, they then got energy back again and then tried to kind of carry on, expecting it, because obviously, you know, you recover from a cold and that's generally okay. But obviously with COVID, that's not. And then a lot of people talking around kind of not listening to their own body, and that's what they would do differently next time. There were a few other things, but I'm aware of time.
Yeah. Oh, bless you.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. So, you know, I think that we're hearing really common themes. And I think particularly for those that were in that 2020 swathe, you know, I know there's a lot of people who are still trying to find their kind of sort of steady ground from 2020 infections. I know there's a lot of people here who will have had 2021 infections, but still, you never quite believe what you need to do that's so different to recover from this kind of virus, because we've never been exposed to anything quite like this before. And so, you know, as Tam just said, well, you know, in the past, you get a cold, you get the suit that day, that moment that you start to feel better is the sign that your body's done what it needs to do and you're back up and you're on your feet and off you go. And so for most of us, that's what we did. And it turns out that that's not how you recover from COVID for a lot of people. Not everyone, because of course there are people that run it like that. There are people that don't even get symptoms. We're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about this beautifully special group of people that took it and made something with it. So I want you to go back into that same group. Now, just the conversation, and I can tell already some of you have started it, is just so that we've had that thought already. What would you do differently this time around? So it's about really just thinking through, okay, that moment where you get a test, what is it that you know you would do differently to how it was that you reacted or responded last time? And it might be not around the acute initial stages of infection. It might be the period of time after that, kind of 10 days to 2 weeks. It might be that you're looking at that slightly longer term management plan. But I'm just going to give you a few minutes to come up with some thoughts around that. And again, I know some people have already had their second infection and are even going through this right now. So giving yourself a chance just to kind of think about it. Because I think the more we come up with a plan, the more you are ready for something, okay? And it's, you know, it's open to change, obviously, but just having some kind of toolkit, I think, and that kind of tank full of belief and hope is essential. It helps the immune system kind of prepare you for less fear, less anxiety response, which means less cortisol, which means less damage to all of the good stuff that needs to happen with the immune system. So I'm just going to put you back into those rooms, okay? Same people it should be. And let's have a quick conversation and come back. And again, we'll ask some people to share. This is what we think we'd do differently this time. Okay. So welcome back in after having that conversation with each other again about what it is that you would do differently from the point of knowing that you had a second infection beginning in your body. So if you didn't get to speak for your group last time, because we didn't get to hear from all, if you be the first one to raise your hand, and then I can come to others. So if you've got Sal, oh, you've been right in there, Sal. Sal, hello. Let me hear from you.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, we were just having a chit chat.
There we go.
That have had a second infection already. And we, two of us, me and I think it was, both said that our breathing was a big thing that we changed on the second infection, because we'd had breathing pattern disorders the first time round. So we'd had respiratory physio help, and we used our breathing exercises to help us through the second one. So we weren't as bad, and we didn't have to call ambulances and things like that. So we were kind of very similar in that respect, but also listening to your body. And if you need to rest, then we know what will happen if you don't. So the first time round, nobody knew anything, literally nobody. So we were all going blind. But the second time, we kind of had ideas what we could do to help. So definitely breathing was the biggest issue, I think.
Brilliant. Oh, that's great.
Than the first time round, because the first time you're so stressed because you don't know anything. There wasn't any vaccines. I mean, I wasn't vaccinated when I had my two infections, because it was March and December 2020. So I wasn't vaccinated either time, but you know, a lot of people are now vaccinated. Now they're getting their second infection, which is kind of helping them as well. And the things you can learn from the first one, as well as the vaccine, kind of helps you with your second one.
That's great. Really good feedback. Thanks, Sal. I'm going to go to another Sally right next to you. Sally Aston, unmute yourself. Hi, hon.
Hi. Yeah, we've got two people in our group who both have had their second infection, so that's quite interesting, and you know what they told themselves. So one of the people was saying that yeah, she looked back into sort of trying to find what supplements and things she thought worked the first time and did the rest and stuff. But I think one person is kind of still trying to recover from quite a while ago for the second one. I don't know whether I name names, I shouldn't really, should I? And then the second person who's been reinfected is sort of 4 weeks on and not had it as badly. So yeah, we talked about going, but you know, some of the things that well, one of them had found out worked, and going back to sort of, yeah, like you said, well, in this case it was specialists, like, you know, people who'd helped her, like a herbalist and so on, so you know a lot more. But what I was saying, one of the problems is that the first time round, in order to find out information, I did spend a lot of time on the internet and finding this wonderful group and stuff. So you know, you're still tempted to do that if you do get a second infection, because you still want to get the support, don't you? And you still want to find out things, and that's forever growing knowledge now, isn't it, about things? So I think that one's quite hard to manage, your time on the internet, because you know that affects your energy levels. That's one of the things I'm worried about anyway. But yeah, well, I think going back to some practices that you know worked the first time.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's okay to spend time on the internet, because now more so than, you know, at the beginning, because at the beginning there was nothing and we were all just kind of scratching around in the dark. But now there are some really great protocols, some really good tips, some really good advice that we just remind ourselves on, you know. And in fact, we're going to come to that. Our next exercise will be, so what are your top 3 tips? What's going to go in that toolkit? And you can make a mental note. Okay, right. I'm going to take my zinc. I'm going to do my vitamin C. I'm going to do my coconut water, like all the stuff that helped initially. We've got access to some of that stuff now. And I think, you know, even just doing things really simply like that, maybe start taking a simple antihistamine again if you've stopped taking them. Just those basic things that we can remind ourselves of. Okay, yeah, I know that I can do that now, because I don't need to wait another 4 months to know that that would help.
But also I think it was such an unusual situation at the beginning, because, you know, you didn't even know you definitely had COVID if you had different symptoms, and you didn't have any of your support systems other than who you were locked down with, to give you any support. And then you're against, of course, the international backdrop of them showing intensive care and people dying and stuff, and all that fed into my fear, I think, looking back. And now I try not to watch, I mean, it's not as horrific anyway, but I try not to watch anything negative if I'm feeling a bit poorly, I just try and keep a positive mindset. So I think that's another thing I've learned.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that, that is one that I think cultivating and focusing on is really, really important. And we can talk a little bit more about that in our kind of top 10 toolkit. Kirsten, I'm going to come to you. Hello, lovely. Unmute yourself. There we go.
Are you sure? Because Claire, I think, had her hand up before me, but
that's okay, because Claire spoke in the last round, so I'll come to her after you. It's fine.
Okay.
She's not going to get cross, are you, Claire? I've met Claire. She's lovely and
okay. I just wanted to be fair. I just wanted to say, actually, one thing that is worth doing is involve your healthcare provider, your doctor, because whilst we've been learning the last 2 years, so have they. And I found it was quite a breath of fresh air. So I'm undergoing my second infection, as Susie knows, and I'm 15 days in. But calling them as soon as I knew I had the symptoms was completely different. They gave me a care plan, which took out the fear. It gave me a bit more control into the situation. They told me when I needed to call 111 or 999, what levels of oxygen I needed to alert the authorities, where my heart rate, what was going to be problematic and what I could do about it, what were signs of dehydration, for example, what was signs of needing, more assistance. And I found that really helpful. So we almost have to get ourselves out of the mindset that before the doctors weren't listening, and we've all experienced that, of having problems and having to find our own pathway. But they were actually quite well equipped and got on it and helped me. So it was a combination of, I don't know whether it's been effective yet, but I think it's been a useful tool alongside the mindfulness that I've done and the old remedies of, like vitamin C, vitamin D, blah, blah, blah. The combination, I think, has given a bit more control, which has then taken out some of the fear. And it's sort of acceptance of it is what it is. Let's just go with it. And I just wanted to share it because I've noticed people don't involve health people so much now because of having knockbacks and so on. But maybe it is worth thinking, and it might be worth dropping them a line or getting in touch.
Yeah, that's really great advice, actually, Kirsten, because I think so many people have had less than positive experiences with some of their, healthcare support and doctors that haven't really got it or understood, or, they've been busy fighting the good fight and not really paying as much attention as maybe we would have liked to the long COVID struggle. And some doctors have been amazing, I have to say, and some have been less engaged. And I know that there's lots of different stories because I've heard a lot of them from the people who are here today. But, what I'm hearing from Kirsten is that actually there are protocols that are in place that you can tap into if you know particularly that you're quite vulnerable to the impact of having another COVID infection. And I know, Kirsten is more clinically vulnerable because she's got a bunch of stuff going on. So, she was definitely someone that for a second infection, as I don't know if you saw in the chat box, but it said that, they've said it could possibly kill her. So that's something that you would like to think there was a protocol in place, and it sounds like that there was, and that's offered you a sense of control. And, at least I think, there's something as well about being supported. And we've talked about this a million times, the power of feeling supported, the power of feeling understood, the power of thinking people are doing things to help me. That feels good for us, and we don't feel scared or as scared because we know that we can reach out and go, can you help? And someone saying this time around, yes, I'm helping you. We know what to do much more than we did then. So that in itself, I'm hoping, if you are someone who's very worried about it, I would like to think that if you reached out and asked for help, help would come your way much more now. Because I think for a lot of people, the trauma of that kind of call for help that happened, for many of us in 2020 was met with, are you breathing? can you get off the line now? Because there are people that aren't, and they need to get through. And that was basically the help that we got. So I know I've seen my doctor once in person since I had COVID. That's been it. Everything else I have basically sourced myself. So, you know, I think it's better to go back now and seek help. I think we are definitely going to be offered something a lot more than just, why don't I test you for cancer? Well, it's not cancer, so can you go away now? I think they're a little bit more equipped, aren't they? So Kirsten, that was lovely. Claire, let's come to you. Thanks, Kirsten.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we talked about the toolkit now. So we talked about actually feeling like we've got a toolkit, you know, the things like the yoga nidra, the breathing, the meditation, all the things we've learned from you. Then we kind of feel like we're in a much, much stronger place now. We talked as well about, like having more knowledge as well. So that obviously goes with the toolkit and the jabs, you know, kind of feeling more empowered because we've got the jabs. So we're hoping it will be milder, it'll be very different this time around. And that our body is maybe more prepared, you know, because we have been doing the right things, which we weren't doing before. And also there was a discussion about like in the past, feeling like maybe if we were resting or, you know, doing that kind of thing, that we were maybe putting our life on hold and kind of not wanting to put our life on hold. But we talked about, well, it's if we need to take some time sort of away from the hustle and bustle of life and time away from work and things, it's not putting our life on hold, it's just a bit of a different life. And yeah, sort of having that different life and that acceptance that maybe we might be ill for a while and maybe we might not be able to do the things we want to do again for a while, but it's okay. And, you know, kind of being obviously supported by all of you guys and, you know, the wonderful community and sort of feeling like, yeah, we're definitely all in a much, much better place. Yeah, so I think that was our main points. And also being realistic about our priorities. Like a lot of us have families, so they are our priorities, and we need to make sure that obviously we are, you know, looking after our children and things like that, but maybe taking away some of the other things that we don't have to do and being able to like delegate better. Like I know myself, I just thought, well, I have to carry on, and my husband had got it at the same time as well. But, you know, now actually accepting a lot more help from others, yeah, and making sure that we're prioritizing properly.
I think that's a really big one, isn't it? I think for a lot of people, we weren't very good at prioritizing our own health and well-being. It was just something that was an aside, perhaps. And I think going on the recovery journey that a lot of us went on or still on, I think you do realize that actually you have to prioritize yourself above most other things at certain points. And that can be a really big challenge, you know, emotionally, mentally, because your relationships have to change shape a bit, your role in your life, you know, maybe the family dynamics around you, maybe you're living by yourself, but, you know, whatever that prioritization is, putting yourself at the top of the list can be quite confronting for a lot of people. Not so many people are so good at it. So, you know, I think it's a journey that we go on, isn't it? And there's lots of kind of elements of it that come along and are challenging in lots of different ways. Rachel, let me come to you, and then we're going to do a quick bit on the toolkit before we hear from second timers. Okay.
So we talked about the fact that having learned from last time, we would take time out. No, this time to stop.
Yeah.
And rest up. And we talked about, again, as others have said, the importance of doing the breathing exercises, both in terms for just for lung health and not getting a breathing pattern disorder back again, but also in terms of just calming the autonomic nervous system down and telling it that it's okay, and doing yoga. And my big fan of Caroline's breathing classes.
You are right. Caroline Arch. So they're on YouTube. If you're not a member of the Rest Repair Gang, you don't worry, you still have access to a couple of her classes. I'm going to put another one on the YouTube channel, and you can just literally hit play as soon as you get that positive test result. Go to YouTube, hit play on Caroline's breathing class, and take a moment just to catch your breath. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Anything else? Where have she gone? Rachel, have you just jumped out?
I've obviously just moved again. No, I think that was it from our group.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of things obviously in the chat.
Sure. Okay. What I think is there's probably a theme of we would do things differently. We would prioritize ourselves. We would slow down. We would ask for help. We know so much more. I'm keeping an eye on the time because I don't want to take up people's Sunday afternoon totally. Let us use the chat box now. So we're not all going to disappear off. Let us use the chat box to come up with what would be your top toolkit content. What's going in that toolkit? Okay. So just use the chat box. And I can call it out because some people, obviously there'll be lots of similarity, but there might be some things that you go, oh, I didn't know about that. So bowel like second infection, rest. I think that's got to be our number one, right? Let me have a little look. Let's see what's coming in. Oh. Oh, there's so many. Nasal breathing, right? Yeah, breathing through your nose. And we breathe through our nose when we're working on our breath because it helps to regulate our breath. Okay, we only go for the mouth breathing if our nose is blocked and it's too uncomfortable. But if you do get that, just gently draw the skin away from the side of the nose, and that can help. Okay, it makes the arms a bit tired, but obviously don't commit to something if it makes you exhausted, but try and work with the nose. Let's see. Acceptance, says Syra. I was going to call you Kyra then, Syra. How bizarre. Left nostril breathing. So left nostril breathing, Nicholas saying, I'm thinking that it's because it's about activating the parasympathetic side rather than the sympathetic side. So there is a theory around breath work that if you breathe through the left side of your nose, it's encouraging the vagus nerve to become a little bit more active. So things to play with, pacing, acceptance, mental and physical rest, right? And I know that, I, for one, was someone who was really bad at mentally resting whilst I lay in bed. I lay in bed being very ill, setting up a Facebook group and trying to help lots of other people. It wasn't particularly restful for me, but actually it gave me purpose, which I think was really important in the long term. And it meant I felt connected to a lot of people, whereas I didn't just here by myself. So I also wanted to set up a Facebook group that was full of hope and positivity, that was a different offering to the bigger groups, which are very much about symptom sharing. And I think there's a really important place for that. But I think having a choice to say, oh, actually today, it's a bit like opening Psychology's magazine, where you go, okay, I'm going to open something positive and just check in with some nice things to think about. And then, go back to whatever it is that you need to go and search for around particular symptoms. So for me, it was a really important decision to create a positive space. Let me come through. There's a lot of acceptance going on here. Healthy diet, supplements, positive thinking, acceptance, and rest. Yeah. SAD lamp. Yeah, right. Good. Vitamin C, D, zinc as well. Let me add to that one. Meditations, breathing. Make sure that breath stays calm. So, so many people ended up, without even knowing it, with a dysregulated respiratory system. And I think a lot of us were so focused on shortness of breath. That was the symptom to look out for. But if you didn't have shortness of breath, like not everyone did, you didn't necessarily think to look to your breath to be a place to help you. But I think many people have since been diagnosed with a disrupted breathing pattern. And that very much plays into the system being stuck in overdrive, the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system being stuck in that kind of panic mode. And we do need to work to gently bring it down to a kind of calmer state. Mindfulness, absolutely. I know lots of you have done the Mindfulness for Long COVID Recovery course, which we run through the 360 platform. And it is phenomenally useful just to keep checking in. What's going on in my head? Is this the best thing that I could be doing with my brilliant brain right now? If the answer is no, just change the state. Kind of, engage your brain elsewhere. No catastrophizing. Yeah, exactly, Donna. Listen to your body, antihistamines, hydration. Yeah. Leah, yes, Caroline's breathing class is on YouTube. It's got a kind of black and yellow sign that just says breathe. It's on my YouTube channel. You'll find it there. Cold showers. I'd say cold showers when you're ready, okay? Because if you're feeling really rubbish, the last thing you want to do is get out of your bed and take a cold shower. But what you can do is take tiny little exposure to cold moments, like just splashing your face with cold water, washing your hands and wrists in cold water. That is a really good way to kind of begin to move towards taking the cold shower thing. Believe in your ability to heal, right? And I think that's a really big one, okay? I think belief, we've talked about this, and it can be, sometimes described as toxic positivity, but there's so much research done around what are your thoughts and response, what's going on in your brain at the time. And there's just so much research that's gone on around its impact on your immune system and the body's ability to kind of do the job it's trying to do. So I love that, Balik. Believe in your ability to heal. Yeah. Don't panic. There's lots of great ones here. Remember, you've done nothing wrong in getting reinfected, right, Kirsten? Because there might be a sense of, oh God, I failed, or my body's let me down, or it's just, actually, I don't even know if it would be called unlucky. It's just, I mean, I don't know about you, but I know so many people who have got COVID positive tests right now. It is just part of life. I think, we don't even need to attach luck or unlucky to it. It's a part of what being a human being on this planet Earth is right now. And which is why we need to find a way of feeling like we have some control over what happens when and if it finds us. Okay. Love to everyone, says Pamela. She's lost for words today. So Pamela has got a second round of infection going on, and she's not vaccinated because she has not been allowed to, because she has anaphylaxis. So what we're going to shift into now is hearing, Rachel Clubb, are you still there, my friend?
Yes, I am.
There she is. So what I'd love to hear is some stories of second infections and how they've been, and maybe if there's a couple that we can just tap into. I'm aware we don't want to go too much over time, but if there's a couple that we can tap into that are really worth kind of just sharing for inspiration purposes, that would be great. I would love you to go to Georgia, because she also wasn't vaccinated when she got her second one. She was waiting and putting it off. It wasn't that she had anaphylaxis, but she was waiting to feel better. And then, of course, it found her again. So let's hear from her at some point, but we don't need to start with Georgia. Rachel, what have you got for us?
I think if Sarah's there and she said she wouldn't mind speaking, she'd be really valuable, because she has been through a second infection, and she might be able to explain why she calls me Usain Bolt and I call her Paula Radcliffe, because I reached out to her when I started to panic and struggle. So is Sarah there?
Is she going to unmute?
Yeah, I'm still here. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Susie.
Hi.
I'll try and keep it brief, because I know we've sort of gone over time and there's lots of people, but I got original long COVID April 2020, got reinfected, I think just before Christmas, and thankfully I feel like I've had it quite mildly. I'm probably 3 weeks today since I got my test. And the main difference really, as we spoke about today, the first time I pushed through, and the second time, as soon as I got that test result, I just shut the world off, cancelled work, went to bed and rested. But I think the other main thing I did, which helped me, was I try not to overthink anything, because people are going, well, where did you get it from? And is it Omicron? And is it going to trigger long COVID? And at the end of the day, the answer to all of that is I don't know. And it doesn't matter. And I've had a really great coach sort of over the last year. And one of the things he sort of he trains athletes as well as dealing with people for chronic fatigue. And he says that he uses the same tools and advice. So whether you're an athlete or an ill person, it's all about don't waste energy. You either need that energy to get better, or you need that energy to win your race. So anything you can do to stop wasting energy is going to help. And so for me, all that overthinking just went out the window, and I just used all the tools that I've learned over the last year, and try to see it as a positive, as a, oh, here's an opportunity to put the tools in place and see how it is. And it's been okay. And and that's been a really reassuring thing. Now, I totally appreciate that's not the same for everyone, and it may not be, but again, no one can sort of say how good or bad a reinfection might be. So it's again just focusing on, well, what can I control? I can control keeping calm. I went back to Susie's rest and repair classes for a week because I was like, I need some company. Yeah. So it's that trying to keep calm, and what Rachel was touching on with the with the Usain Bolt and Paula Radcliffe is it's sort of doing visualizations on rather than I don't want to feel ill, I don't want to feel fatigue, I do want to feel healthy and robust, and then I attach a simile to that, like Paula Radcliffe or like a forest ecosystem, and as soon as my thoughts start going into a pit of despair, I just try and sort of do a thought process of what positive, or how do I want to feel, and how can a positive thing, and how can that be, and just sort of doing that regularly, and I feel that sort of helped as well, just with the calmness.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. It's great to see you looking so well so soon after that second infection as well. So fantastic. Great. Rachel, should we do one more before we go to Georgia?
Yeah, I wonder if Vicky Leslie says that she would be happy to speak, because I think her story would be really valuable to those people who haven't been able to be vaccinated.
Where are you, Vicky?
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm unvaccinated and not through choice. The couple of times I went to go and get it, I was refused it because they said I was too ill to give it to me. So I have yet to get a vaccine. First infection March 2020, second June 21. And when I got the second infection, I was in a bit of a relapse, and I was bedbound at the time, and the family all tested positive at the same time. But my symptoms were very different to the first time round. So my first reaction was, oh, well, this isn't going to be the same. In a positive way, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be different. Also, from a mindset point of view, the first time round, I was quite panicky, but what I told myself was, so much more is known about this now. The medics do have things at their disposal. People aren't dying the way they were before, etc., etc. And that just brought me right back down to, I've just got an infection and I just need to do what my body needs me to do to fight this. And it lasted for 7 days, the worst of it. Now I always had this thing in my head that between the 5 and 8 days, they say if you start to get worse. But got past that 5 days and I was like, oh, I've cracked it. And yeah, it was just a much easier experience because I think I allowed myself just to be ill, and say, I can fight this, switch everything off. I knew about the hydration at that point and the antihistamines, and I really wasn't up or down from it. The other thing I should say is that there was no change at all to my long COVID symptoms either way, positive or negative. It just stayed the same. But there was a bit of me that was like, how much worse can this get? Because my long COVID was there, I thought, this second infection, how much more can this do to me? I've had some really miserable days with long COVID. I can do this. I can get through this. And I did. And I think just that thinking of it differently, and that the media and everything being publicised at that time was so different. I'm still anxious that I'm not vaccinated because of, a lot of the reasons that we all know about, and that if I get it again, but I do feel like, well, I'll just take it on if I get it again, and it will be okay. And if it's not, I can't do anything about it anyway, so it will be okay, and I'll be okay. So that's my experience anyway.
Thank you, Vicky. It's really lovely to hear your kind of sort of your calm talk through there. you know, knowing that it is something that it could happen again. You know, you have kids, they go to school, you know, they're coming home to you, you're constantly being exposed to the possibility of this happening for a third time for you. And there's a sense of acceptance, which I think, you know, it's a really difficult thing to kind of find for a while, isn't it? But I think, you know, once we do find that place and sort of surrender to the here and now and not worry too much about the future, it can make such a difference to just our day-to-day experience of life. So thank you for sharing that with us. Rachel.
Yeah, Tam also says that she was unvaccinated at her second infection and that she's doing really well now as well.
Great.
So that's really positive. And I can't actually, it cuts off the amount, the chats. You only get a certain amount of chat, so I can't go all the way back to the original ones. But what I can say was there was a massive influx of people saying that they'd had a second infection and that they had managed those second infections really well. And a couple of the things that really came across were focusing on the breathing and focusing on the mindset. They were the two big things that were coming through again and again from people's comments.
Yeah, great. And shall we just finish with Georgia? Georgia, are you still here, my love? Always takes time for people to unmute. She may have put a thing in the chat box saying I need to go.
Hi, I'm here.
You're there. Hi, hon.
Hello. Hello. I'm actually, it's interesting, you know, I have to say being unvaccinated as well. And the reason I waited was because I'm only 9 months in with my second infection. So I am very symptomatic. So I just wanted to wait a little bit.
So wait, hang on a minute. You were 9 months from your first infection.
I'm sorry, from my...
You got your second about a month, 5 weeks ago now, maybe?
I would say 4 weeks. It's been 4 weeks. Yeah. And the first 2 weeks were they were nothing like the first time. I will say that, nothing like the first time. And from what I'm seeing with a lot of friends, because I'm in New York and so many of us have gotten it a second time, and a lot of us are long haulers as well, we're not getting it the same way. There's something about this particular variant that they're seeing that it's not as extreme. It's not hitting long haulers the same way, and people seem to be recovering between 4 and 5 weeks.
Amazing. And how, just give us a heads up on how you're feeling now.
I'm okay. I mean, a few of my symptoms have kind of peaked a little bit. The insomnia is back, which I had done pretty well with. It seems to be a little more aggravated right now, but nothing like the first time. None of it's like the first time. And I think having all the tools that we have, you know, the breath work, the calming visualizations, your classes, all the information that we know. And I also think a big part of it is I've been off of the news.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't want to hear about COVID anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's a virus and we will clear it. We have T-cell memory. So we've done it before. Our bodies will clear it again.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you up and about and filling us with hope there. Thank you, honey.
Yeah, I wanted also to say just quickly that I do have a lot of energy, and I've noticed, you know, I can do many things, but I'm specifically saying no, not right now. So I think that's very important with a second infection, because is it the adrenaline, you know, and it was like the first time when we got the infection.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to stop before you feel you don't need to necessarily. But I would say just don't rush it. You have time. Rest, 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 rest. Even when you feel like you don't want to rest, just rest.
Right there, and there lies the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to get you all to think now for a moment as we head towards finishing. What is it that you would like to feel about the concept or the idea of a reinfection? So maybe you've just done round 2, maybe there's round 3 coming, who knows? Okay, but what is it that you would like to feel instead of fear, instead of anxiety, instead of, is this going to kill me? Is this going to be the same? Let's just create an alternative that you could perhaps switch into. So I believe that, you know, what goes on in our minds is a little bit like a set of kind of movies. And we kind of tap into certain movies depending on what situations are going on. So obviously the fear, panic, worry movie is one of the kind of first go-to movies that we're drawn to. It's inevitable. It's what we do, right? The panic makes us change our behavior, or the anxiety helps to kind of supposedly keep us safe. But what we all know is that it can be detrimental to us in if it's left to run for a long time. So how would we like to feel? So let's just put that in the chat box, and let's see if we can kind of inspire ourselves to choose another thing that in that moment where we go, oh my God, this is happening for me, we allow a panic. Of course, you know, when my son tested positive, I cried because I just thought, oh, here we go. And then I went, okay, is that going to help you if you spend the rest of the day feeling sorry for yourself, for your son, and kind of going in? No, it's not really going to help anyone. I'm allowed to feel a bit rubbish and sad about it for a while, but if I let that one run for too long, that's actually going to take a negative impact on me. So I'm going to go, okay, how do I want to be? I want to be calm. That was my thing. I just want to be calm about this. So let's have a look. I want you to state this as a positive. This is what I do want to feel. So you can kind of really almost take a word away from this workshop. This is my word, my go-to word. Let's see, we've got calm, safe, right? Calm and safety. Faith that I can weather it, love that. Relaxed, safe and calm. Hope, trust, support, calm. Safe, able to cope, yes. Confidence in my body, Sally Aston, that's a lovely one, because I think, you know, we can be terrified of our bodies. We can be terrified of what's going on from our first experiences. You know, it was a roller coaster that we felt we had no say in. And that creates a disconnect, doesn't it, between me and my body. But to kind of come home to yourselves and have confidence in your body, I think is really key. I'm not going to let this one get me. Yeah, right. Surrender and forgiveness, grounded, loved and connected, absolutely calm and at peace. Accept what will be. Right, put on Que Sera, Sera, put it on loudly and stand around in your house singing. Strong and prepared. I want to feel calm and in control. Right. So there is always, you know, if you can do a little tiny piece of work on yourself to kind of just tap into that word, that statement, that kind of sentiment that you'd like to feel, it is always there. You have choice. And it's about noticing yourself, especially if you've spiraled out of control, about going, actually, is this the best thing that I could be doing right now to help myself get through this? Probably the answer will be no if you're in that kind of panic space, but to come over into a kind of like, I'm okay, I'm calm, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I've got this. It's going to be a more beneficial space. It might take a bit of work to keep kind of pulling yourself back into it, but use tools like being connected on a Facebook group that's going to help you, showing up maybe to the Rest, Repair, Recover classes, for the chat, for the support group. You know, find a place where you've got support and reminders to stay calm and to stay focused around what you know, and that kind of trust in yourself. Because that's really going to make a difference to you. So from kind of here on in, choosing that sort of point where you notice your brain is going, well, you're really worried about this. And it might be that you notice it's taking up a big chunk of your day, percentage wise, of thought space, of mental space, of physical energy. And if it is, just, you know, what can you do differently just to kind of lessen that, to calm that, to soothe that, so that you know and remind yourself, actually, remember, I need to do my best to stay calm and to stay focused. And I've got tools now, I've got skills, I've got a kind of a tribe that will support me if I need to be, reaching out and asking for help. I'm not going to go through this on my own, and I can ask for help. So those things are much more powerful thoughts and mindsets to have than this kind of fear of, oh my God, is it gonna take me this time? I'm wondering how all of that kind of lands. So just if anyone has the energy to put just a comment on if that's made a difference, has that helped them kind of come away from the hour and 24 minutes that we've had together and go, actually, I think that has helped me, or maybe there's more to do. You know, it's not the easiest of work, and And obviously, you know, some of us will be challenged at some point, for sure. But just knowing that you're not alone and that you can reach out and ask for help, hopefully will offer you some sense of reassurance. Gabriella saying, this chat has been reassuring. That's great. It's made a huge difference. Thank you, Brahman. You feel reassured, calm, and more in control. Great. I think it's about reminding ourselves that we have some choice about what happens here. Yeah. Thank you for organizing it. That's great. Amazing workshop, reassuring. Thank you. Good. Good, folks. Thank you for sharing your thoughts too. And, you know, obviously I'm always here. If you want to ask a question, you can put it into the main Facebook group or just DM me if that's okay. I get a lot of messages and emails. So if I don't reply straight away, you know, don't worry. You can always just message me again. But what I'm sensing is, oh, Jane, that's great. It never occurred to you to get a conscious plan, but this is really helpful. Great. Do you know, when I thought about this workshop, it reminded me of getting ready to have my first child. It was like, okay, you know, you have to have a plan. Obviously, those plans can go completely out the window. Most of us, if you've ever had a child, will know that the plan is like, okay, that plan, not that one. Let's create a new plan. But for me, after I had my first child, I was very, very adamant I wasn't going to go through that again. And then after about a year, I realized I needed to come up with a plan to help me cope with going through that again, because I wanted another child. And I actually did exactly this, on allowing myself to go back to the person that was stressed and worried about going through that again. And I kind of changed my experience by bringing my wise self to that event and going, what would you do differently? Because you now have the wisdom of experience on your side, and that is more powerful than anything else. So that by the time I took a positive test, and I think, you know, the similarity was really funny. I took a positive test. Oh, here I go. I'm pregnant again, child 2. Instead of going, oh my God, I've got to go through that again. It was like, okay, I'm ready. I know what I'm going to do from this point in. I even scripted my husband. I was like, okay, just so you know, this is what you say. This is what you don't say. And it was a completely different experience, but it reminded me, you know, as I was thinking about this workshop, that's a very similar situation. It was a traumatic experience for many people having COVID. The journey of recovery has been quite traumatic, but what we've done is reminded ourselves today how much we've learned. And I think that is really key for us to tap into now. So thank you. And I love that I'm getting lots of comments coming through here saying it's been reassuring, it's been helpful. Great. The small chat rooms are brilliant. Oh, great. Right. I know this. We're only messaging people right in the main Facebook group. It's so important to talk with people. And let me just use this one last comment as a reminder that we do have a buddy system that we set up through the Facebook group. Joe Hunter set up a buddy system through 360 Mind Body Soul. If you do want someone to buddy up with, if you want to share stories or just feel like you've got someone that you can kind of WhatsApp, who's not necessarily related to you through friendship or family or whatever, it's just a long COVID buddy, then we do provide like a dating service for that. So if you want to feel that you have someone that you can kind of just have more of a kind of relationship with, of support, then we will help you do that. Okay, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so pleased that you all made the time to show up and be part of this, because I know the people that are going to watch this on catch up later are going to be really, really supported and reassured by it too. So go take care of yourselves, and thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts and wisdom today with us all as a group. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lots of love, and I'll see you next time. Okay, take care until then. Bye.